So, welcome to our first video on our strength and conditioning program specific to boxing. Here I'll be talking about the theory behind the program and what we're trying to achieve. So, here you see us focusing on our main exercise, which is the snatch. Now, the reason why this dominates every program is because the snatch is very similar to a straight punch in boxing. You're combining horizontal extension, elbow extension, flexion at the shoulder girdle, etc. You're getting a nice contraction through the rhomboids and an eccentric loading through the pectoral muscles, which is exactly the same as a punch. The only thing that we're missing here is rotation, which we work on with assistant exercises in our assistance work after each training session. We increase the load by about 2.5 kilos each week. So here we're working with 45 kilos, making sure that technique is getting more and more solid each week. We then move on and we go to the overhead press. The overhead press is a fantastic exercise as a semi-open chain exercise. You're getting a nice contraction through the shoulder girdle, once again extension of the triceps, and the good thing is that the strength curve doesn't dip too much throughout the exercise. Now, what I mean by this is that the overhead press isn't a lot easier the higher you go up, so you're making sure that you're developing power from the early stages and in the late stages of the lift, which is what you need for a punch. You don't want to have just a powerful punch from the shoulder and then you get to the person's head and your power diminishes. That's what can happen if you focus on too many exercises that have an ascending strength curve, like the bench press, for example, or the squat, which gets easier and easier the higher you go. We're also working the stabilizers of the shoulder, i.e. serratus anterior, the rhomboids, etc., which is and the rotator cuff, which is essential for good shoulder health. A lot of people will overhead press just down to their chin, so they're missing out on that area where they're really going to be developing their rotator cuff muscles. So then here we're working on some, I suppose this would be classed as plyometrics. So once again, looking at the strength or the force velocity curve, we're making sure here that we're not just strong, but we're also powerful, i.e. you can contract force or you can create force at high velocity. There's no point being a boxer bench pressing 140 kilo if you can't develop that speed to knock someone out. As well as that, we're also going into a descending strength curve, so the exercise is getting progressively harder the more you move through, which is why you have to give that extra oomph to get up off the ground and onto the plates. A good substitute for this might be a bench press with bands. And now moving on to our leg work. So in boxing, we try and limit the eccentric movement of leg lifts. The reason why is because we don't want to add an extra kilo or so of muscle mass that's not going to be used, right? That's why we limit the eccentric component as much as possible, or we overemphasize the concentric component. So we're jumping here, landing on soft knees. Once again, we're working maximum velocity. So although, it's a squat, you do have to give the extra bit of effort at the end to get nice and high. And that's where we want the power in boxing. We want the power at the end of the fist and at the tips of the feet. So you're never really going to be doing much in a full squat position, or you're never going to be throwing a punch when, your fist is right near your chest. So we need that power at full extension. And once again, just increase the weight by 2.5 kilos each week. Build explosive strength whilst limiting excessive hypertrophy. So the boxers have a better chance of developing more power within their weight limit. The reason why we're sticking most of the time to around three repetitions, 5 sets of 3, is because we want to stick in that power range. You want good form, good power, high explosiveness throughout the whole exercise. We go on to 5 reps and we're more looking to strength / hypertrophy, so we keep the intensity nice and high. Here you'll see us move on to some isometric lateral raises. Simple justification. We're just trying to make sure that, one, the medial deltoid isn't neglected, as it can be in boxing, and 2, we're making sure that the boxer has enough muscular endurance to keep his arms up at all times. The less effort you have to, or the less attention you have to pay to keeping your hands up, the more attention you can pay to doing what you need to do in the fight. So there's a slight discrepancy in muscular endurance here. But one thing we still do is we still apply the principle of overload. So we'll be trying to increase the amount of time they can keep the 2.5 kilo weights up for, by 5 seconds each time we train. So Grant's going for 90 seconds here. Right, and this is our assistance work for rotator cuff or shoulder stabilization health. So here we've got Jordan working the teres muscles, rhomboid muscles. You'll then see him go on to work supraspinatus a little bit more specifically. So these are the Y movements now to work supraspinatus. Then we have Grant in the background there, and he's doing isometric shoulder holds. Now, what we're doing here is working serratus anterior, which contracts maximally when the shoulder is at full flexion. And I find that external rotation from the shoulder also helps isolate serratus anterior. So here we've got our agility sprints. We time it each time, going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 markers. And this is to build agility in the frontal plane. So you'll see me instruct them to keep their chest facing the wall at all times.